this shit working? Yeah. Um. Hmm. Probably. I keep pump faking the fact that I'm gonna stop making these videos. I think tomorrow's my last one. Like I just got off all my socials. That one's gonna be about Robert Moore, something I actually want to talk about. We like to talk about where society is going and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, how much time can we spend of our, finite life more or less commenting on something that is already dead? Unfortunately, what most Americans will not admit is that what they are operating inside of is the corpse of an already dead society. Um, it's a hard pill to swallow, and a lot of people view that as hopeless. No, I don't. Quite the contrary. I'm actually quite hopeful for humans, although many of these creatures that are currently walking around with America have deluded themselves into thinking that they are humans with respect to their historical ancestors, and they're not. There's something clearly different, something more vile, something that wants war. We like to have believed that we've, evolved out of this as a species, as a culture. But it is clear that our hubris has gotten too big for our collective shoulders, and as a result, well, many of us believe that ostriching is the appropriate way forward. And when I help the observer understand that the behaviors of an ostrich only ever gets it killed by its predators. Just because you protect the head does not mean your body isn't fully exposed. So, with respect to what's actually coming our way, people need to understand what is actually next. You know what I'm saying? It's not just that we're shaking hands with the Israeli military, which is clearly treason. Um, we're going the way of barbarism with nukes. The reason that is, and the reason it's not stopping, is because most Americans have lost the ability to consider their own agency with respect to what they are actually doing. We like to use the verbiage that complacency kills, and this is exactly what it means. When the patron of society, if you, again, this is not a society in the traditional sense, this is a set of rules that oppress. To put it simply, this is imperialism, this is slavery, that's all it's ever been. The people who are kind of more or less getting over something or think that something is still up for fighting for, such as a country, such as a democracy, um, these people are just simply brainwashed with a certain respect to what's actually going on outside. You know what I'm saying? Like, they need to understand that what they've done with their free time is essentially enslave their being, enslave everything that who they are to the project of simply acquiring money. And in that process, they have forfeited just about everything about who they are. They no longer care about not just others, but they really no longer care about what happens to their own mortal life. Again, this thing that's replaced, us humans, it no longer has the ability to consider its. So we like to use terms like game theory, but this person no longer understands how to play the game anymore because it is so morally rotten. It is it is so utterly contemptuous in nature that one can only equate it to non-humanistic things. And I don't mean that to sound like, in any sense of the word, racist. I think, like I said, this is one of my final videos because of just how stupid this side of the block has gotten. Um, but we are all one race. And for some reason, the prevailing world order, it's not the world order, clearly. America is but a tiny, limp puppy compared to the adults of the world. Um, fuck, where was I? I don't know. Like I said, I'm pretty much more or less over this paradigm that seeks to hold the almighty dollar high. And people are going to start waking up when they start seeing their 401ks, their retirements no longer there because the gangsters continue to perform gangster stuff with their money. And although most of them don't have the ability to understand that what is happening to others will ultimately happen to them, um, they will, of course, eventually wake up. You know, I guess one thing I wanted to kind of squeeze in this video is that if conspiracy theories are your prevailing theory of mind about what has happened with respect to your history, you are inherently racist and you are inherently part of the problem that I am talking about. Your inability to at least want to address or understand your own history in a realistic manner has led you to where you are now. A form of ego inflation that can only be understood as cataclysmic as the ones that died in a bunker a long time ago, as the bombs. You know, I don't know how to describe Hitler at this point. We understand that when we give too much power to a small set of individuals, what ultimately happens with the power and the world around them. And it's just like, why? You almost want to go like, why do we keep doing it to ourselves? But when you begin to measure just how stupid people are willing to behave for their own separate understandings of the allegorical cave, you begin to understand immediately what the problem is. And the problem has always been the human condition. This thing that has always more or less felt justified and righteous in its behavior as it acquires more materialistic goods, which is all this American project has ever been. All people seem to care about is acquiring more stuff. And this seems to be the paradise they want to build. And not only has this essentially built a country that they no longer recognize, they don't understand what they're being replaced by. And I can't find it utterly hilarious to the kind of ignorance the cavemen have been allowed to have for so long. Have you noticed just most of the people more or less walking is a strong word, but when we see as people approach the end stages of their life, they more or less need the assistance of wheelchairs, walkers, or motorized mobility aids. And I can't help but think when I begin to measure this person in old age, not just with respect to our historical ancestors, but to people across the world, such as China or Iran, I recognize once again that whatever kind of worm people we seek to become over here on this side of the block is just genetically inferior to what is happening across the globe simply at the educational level. We, throughout time, through however what many years you want to call it, we have somehow uneducated what has made our genetics worthwhile out of our species. And I just can't help but find that hilarious with respect to like what we are all experiencing today. We like to use terms like, like Trump or these political actors are ruining the world. No. It is certainly the people at this point who are still remain convinced that they are inside of a conventional democracy, who still remain convinced that they have, rudimentary capitalism. This is entirely the problem. Notice how academia has split itself, for crying out loud. When was the last time The medical sciences suffer from what is called the reproducibility criteria. They can't reproduce what they're talking about because they're so full of shit. All doctors are itemized lists of bills. All lawyers are there to do is increase their billable hours. People need to understand that our society isn't structured around the truth. It is structured there to extract money so it can bomb brown people. This is all these foreign affairs have ever amounted to: warmongering and the lack of progress. I don't know whatever these cave people are anymore, but they certainly aren't anybody I want to share a country with anymore. And if that simply means that I need to leave, so be it. If it simply means that I need to fight for my brothers and sisters who are still here, so be it. But we understand that these gorillas that are currently in government, still throwing bombs on babies' heads, those people need to go. The people still hoisting them high in the air, they need to go. Because we gotta get back to society. Because we got adult shit to do. Anything else is a waste of time and a waste of human life.